In a move that reverberates across the corridors of Buckingham Palace and beyond, King Charles has formally confirmed that Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, will assume the role of official guardian for the royal succession concerning Master Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Ms. Lillette. This landmark declaration, issued from Buckingham Palace at exactly 7:46 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time on the 31st of January, 2026, underscores the Crown's commitment to safeguarding the legacy, dignity, and future of the royal line. The British monarchy, in doing so, has enacted one of its most decisive institutional shifts in nearly a century. Since the abdication crisis of 1936, the scale of this move has no modern precedent. For the first time in contemporary history, the children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are officially placed under royal custodial oversight. The decision comes after months of documented instability, legal violations, and what senior palace officials describe as a profound symbolic erosion of parental responsibility by their biological parents. The Royal Guardian Declaration was far from impulsive. It represents the culmination of systematic concerns that have been brewing since mid-2025. The immediate catalyst occurred on the 24th of January, 2026, when Meghan Markle appeared in Dubai at the Royal Women's Empowerment Forum, held at the opulent Burj Al Arab Markle. Without prior coordination with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, or even the Palace Press Secretary, she addressed a high-profile international audience as the mother of the next generation of royal changemakers. Adding to the intrigue, Meghan wore diamond earrings gifted to the crown in 2014 by the Saudi royal family and posed beneath a gold-lettered banner referencing the Sussex children by name. Notably absent was any mention of Prince Harry, nor the physical presence of Archie and Lillette, according to internal reports from GCHQ and the UK diplomatic attaché stationed in the UAE. The event further included unofficial branding materials displaying the royal crest, the term HRH, and commercial pitches tied to Meghan's upcoming book and lifestyle initiatives. Such actions constituted a violation of a confidential title usage memorandum signed by Harry and Meghan in July 2025, which explicitly barred the use of royal associations abroad without written approval. Between January 18th and January 30th, King Charles III made 3 formal attempts to reach Prince Harry directly. 2 calls were routed through official Montecito security channels, and a final diplomatic message was delivered via the British Consul General in Los Angeles. There was no response. Instead, verified photographs showed Prince Harry attending a cybersecurity roundtable at the Bellagio Conference Center in Las Vegas on January 28th, hosted by a former Invictus Games sponsor. He appeared alone and declined all media questions. Internal sources described him as disoriented, emotionally withdrawn, and unwilling to engage with urgent family matters, a portrait that concerned palace officials deeply. The Crown's unprecedented intervention rests on 3 foundational legal pillars. The Succession Clarity Protocol, activated in early January 2026, mandates that any royal heir under 16 maintain continuity of care and verified institutional guardianship in the event of parental misconduct. The Legacy Protection Clause, codified in 1937 and invoked only once previously, empowers the Crown to seek partial custodial authority if royal minors are at risk of prolonged neglect, cross-border displacement, or reputational harm. Finally, the Royal Child Welfare Oversight Act, developed in 2024 with the Department for Education and the Home Office, establishes a sovereign pathway for appointing guardianship that supersedes parental claims in circumstances affecting the royal line. All 3 provisions were cited in the January 31st High Court filing submitted by Lord Pembroke on behalf of the Sovereign Circle. Central to the legal momentum was Princess Anne's formal dossier, submitted at Sandringham on January 27th. Compiled over 4 months by the Office of Royal Protocol, it documented 17 individual incidents of unauthorised title usage by Meghan Markle. The dossier revealed 6 brand partnerships referencing Archie and Lilette without consent, 3 internal staff testimonies citing emotional instability and neglectful delegation of care, and 2 payments to unvetted childcare agencies in California. Anne's message during a closed-door session at Clarence House was unambiguous. These children are not accessories, nor stepping stones for public redemption or private wealth. They are Windsors, and the Windsor legacy shall reclaim them. This framing helped preempt anticipated legal pushback from Meghan's legal team, who promptly characterized the move as maternal erasure via legacy law. The appointment of Princess Catherine as royal guardian was met with wide internal consensus. A memo circulated among senior aides emphasized her emotional stability, institutional alignment, and personal commitment to the crown's youngest heirs. In parallel, Catherine consulted 2 UNICEF child development advisors, a UK-based trauma psychologist specialising in cross-border custody disputes, and former aides to Queen Elizabeth II, who advised on integrating displaced royal minors into the legacy system. Under Catherine's guidance, a comprehensive plan was developed: dual-track bilingual education for Archie and Lilette, seasonal heritage programmes at Balmoral and Sandringham, and a strict suspension of all commercial content featuring the children. A sealed personal identity trust was established to fund emotional, academic and legal support through 2040, running in parallel to the guardianship decision. The Sovereign Circle further approved a financial compliance directive requiring Meghan Markle to honour her obligations under the 2022 Royal Parenting Cost Share Agreement. This included payment of £842,000 in backdated child development expenditures, transfer of all intellectual property profits derived from the children's likenesses since January 2023, and cease and desist obligations regarding her proposed memoir, The Crown Behind the Crib. Non-compliance would result in frozen UK-based assets previously granted. The Royal Guardian Declaration on January 31, 2026, was not a sudden emotional reaction. It was the result of a calculated escalation within the palace. By December 18, 2025, the matter of Archie and Lilette had transformed from a private family issue into a question of national and institutional preservation. Prince William chaired a confidential legal strategy session at Windsor Castle with representatives from the Royal Household Legal Office, the Home Office Liaison for Child Protection, and financial auditors connected to the sovereign grant. The session reviewed the Archie Oil Foundation's sub-accounts, revealing that between February and October 2025, over £1.2 million had been allocated toward media positioning and visual storytelling of the minor heirs. £314,200 was earmarked specifically for contracts with consultants preparing content pitches to streaming services, including an unapproved docuseries titled Archie and Lilette, California Royals. William's reaction was firm. We are not shareholders in a reality franchise. We are custodians of legacy. Weeks later, Princess Anne formally submitted her dossier to the Sovereign Circle, incorporating former staff accounts and international observer reports. Included was sworn testimony from a Canadian child development advisor who observed Lilette during a July 2025 visit to Vancouver, noting signs of emotional inconsistency, dislocation, anxiety, and curated public identity framing. The report warned of long-term developmental risks if the children remained in an unstructured, brand-forward domestic environment. Amid rising concern, Catherine convened her own working group. By January 10, 2026, a full custody transition blueprint was drafted, including educational stabilization measures, psychological support protocols, and a total moratorium on media exposure involving the children's likenesses. Notably, it recommended forming an independent trust, overseen by the Duchy of Cornwall, to fund all child-related expenses through 2040. While these measures quietly progressed in the UK, Meghan Markle was orchestrating a counter-offensive in California. On January 12th, Arch Ofwell Legal issued a preservation notice to major media outlets, asserting that any royal interference with maternal custodial rights could constitute extra-jurisdictional overreach. At the same time, her PR team circulated preview materials for The Crown Behind the Crib, framing it as a mother's fight against monarchy-driven erasure. The tipping point arrived on January 27th, when palace intelligence analysts reported audio from a closed-door Dubai donor event. Meghan allegedly stated, "Let them try to take my children. This crown feeds on tradition, and I'm rewriting the script in everybody's tender." It became clear the situation had escalated from public relations to containment. On January 30th, a quorum vote convened at Sandringham. Queen Camilla abstained, but Princess Anne, Prince William and the Duchess of Cornwall voted unanimously to trigger the Royal Guardian Protocol. Within 24 hours, Catherine's name was inscribed into the custodial writ. The line had been crossed. The Crown would act not for control, but for continuity. With the Royal Guardian Declaration prepared and the internal vote secured, the palace rapidly translated policy into enforceable legal action. By the afternoon of January 31st, 2026, a sealed filing was delivered to the Family Division of the High Court of Justice in London. The 47-page document, drafted by Lord Pembroke and signed under sovereign authority, invoked 3 emergency instruments simultaneously: the Legacy Protection Clause, the Royal Child Welfare Oversight Act, and the newly ratified Lillette Protocol, a framework designed specifically to protect royal minors from cross-border commercial exploitation. According to court officials briefed on the submission, the filing argued that Archie and Lillette were experiencing what lawyers termed jurisdictional instability, rotating residences between California and temporary overseas locations, inconsistent educational enrollment, and security arrangements funded through opaque private contracts rather than accredited royal or governmental channels, a situation the Crown deemed unsustainable and requiring immediate intervention. The dossier meticulously included spreadsheets and tracking reports covering the children's schooling over the previous 18 months. Within that period, Archie had reportedly cycled through 3 separate private tutoring programs, none of which lasted more than 12 consecutive weeks. Meanwhile, Lillette had no verified preschool placement documented after September 2025. A striking gap that drew immediate concern from palace officials and educational consultants alike. The palace's legal team framed these figures not merely as isolated parental decisions, but as part of a broader structural pattern incompatible with the Crown's obligations to safeguard the royal line. Central to the legal argument was Princess Anne, who submitted a sworn memorandum attached to the court filing. In it, she described what she termed a deliberate and sustained rebranding strategy built around the Sussex children. Her annexes detailed licensing drafts, speaking engagement proposals, and sponsorship decks circulated throughout the Gulf region from October 2025 through January 2026. One confidential document, labelled Phase 2, explicitly positioned Lillette as a cross-cultural royal heritage ambassador, projecting 7-figure annual endorsement revenues by 2028. Princess Anne's analysis was methodical, clinical, and devoid of emotion. Repeated attempts to commercialize the identities of royal minors without institutional authorization presented material risks to their welfare, security, and legal standing. These findings underpinned the most controversial aspect of the palace's move, a demand for compulsory compliance orders directed at Meghan Markle. Under the proposed structure, Meghan would be required to follow a royal maintenance and responsibility schedule modelled after post-divorce Crown family settlements. The schedule, submitted to the High Court, outlined strict quarterly disclosure of all income streams connected to the children's names or likenesses. It mandated the immediate cessation of merchandising, publishing, or promotional projects involving Archie or Lillette, along with annual contributions of no less than £1.6 million into a protected child welfare trust covering education, therapy, security vetting, and relocation logistics. Additionally, it required retroactive reimbursement of £842,000 in child-related expenses that palace auditors determined had been redirected toward public relations retainers and legal consultancies in 2024 and 2025. The filing further warned that failure to comply would trigger asset-freezing petitions in the UK, with reciprocal recognition motions in US family courts under international parental responsibility conventions. Parallel to the financial directives, the palace sought temporary relocation authority, Though not an immediate physical removal of the children from California, the Crown petitioned for primary institutional oversight, granting Catherine supervisory power over schooling, healthcare providers, and travel clearance. Any foreign commercial appearance involving the children would require written approval from the Guardian's office inside Buckingham Palace. Official communications emphasised that the initiative was judicial and precautionary rather than punitive. Briefing notes circulated to Commonwealth diplomats reinforced three key objectives: stabilisation, depoliticisation, and long-term developmental continuity. Prince William, overseeing coordination with the Home Office, insisted that all legal language remain narrowly framed. According to aides present during drafting sessions, he rejected early versions of the filing that cast parental conduct in moral terms. Instead, he directed that the case be argued strictly on transactional evidence, accounting records, contracts, and residency logs. "We win this on paper," he reportedly told advisers, not in outrage across the Atlantic. Meghan's legal team responded within hours. Arch-Ofwell attorneys filed notices in California, asserting that the children were habitual residents of the United States and warning that the palace's actions risked forum shopping through constitutional novelty. They disputed the financial figures presented by the palace, claiming that security and consultancy payments were reasonable and proportionate given persistent media threats. Despite these legal maneuvers, two US-based consultants later briefed on the matter described the palace's documentation as a serious challenge. "The vulnerability here," one analyst noted, "is not emotional, it's transactional. If you can demonstrate monetization tied to minors combined with instability in schooling, courts will pay attention, royal or not." By the end of the first week of February, the case had quietly transformed into a multi-jurisdictional custody contest involving British constitutional advisors, American family law specialists, and diplomatic intermediaries. What began as a palace statement had evolved into a full-scale litigation campaign centered on a single institutional proposition that guardianship was no longer symbolic, it was enforceable. Following the legal filings of January 31, 2026, and the ensuing jurisdictional motions in both the UK and US, the focus within the sovereign circle shifted from litigation to implementation. Princess Catherine, now officially appointed as guardian of royal succession for Archie and Lilette, began rolling out a phased reintegration plan developed in consultation with paediatric development specialists, royal education advisors, and intergovernmental child welfare officers. The blueprint rested on three foundational pillars: emotional rehabilitation, institutional normalization, and protection from reputational volatility. While public attention focused on the legal headlines, internal efforts at Kensington Palace were aimed at transforming two children born into media controversy into private citizens with the option of formal royal affiliation only upon adulthood. At the core of Catherine's plan was a dual-track education model. Archie and Lilette would be registered in bilingual academic programs underwritten by the Crown, but managed through independent international school systems in the UK and Canada. The curriculum emphasised civic engagement, critical thinking, and heritage studies, deliberately avoiding training in royal protocol or public appearances. A tailored charter, drafted in February 2026 by a private consultant to the Duchy of Cornwall, outlined the goal of enrolling Archie, age 7, in a structured classroom by March 20, 2026, and beginning his foundational education in the UK by September 2026. Seasonal learning residencies were to rotate between Windsor and Victoria, British Columbia, with monitored peer socialisation alongside children of civil servants and diplomatic families to minimise media influence. Catherine, a former education advocate with deep ties to early childhood development initiatives, ensured the children would receive regular psychological evaluations to monitor adjustment and trauma patterns, particularly in response to their high-profile parents, and the potential reputational collapse associated with public exposure. Another critical element was the Royal Child Content Moratorium, a formal set of restrictions on the commercial, documentary, or promotional use of the children's images, voices, or names. Filed with the UK Intellectual Property Office and mirrored in a US cease and desist notice, The moratorium blocked future media projects or marketing involving Archie or Lilette without institutional consent. Catherine reportedly insisted that the moratorium extend not only to Meghan and Harry, but also to all third-party production companies, talent agents, and publishers who had previously negotiated with Archell or their affiliates. This initiative was reinforced on February 5, 2026, when the Palace's legal office issued formal notices to streaming platforms that had received unauthorised Sussex-related child proposals over the previous 12 months. Despite these restrictive measures, the plan did not sever the children from their heritage. Instead, it emphasised private reconnection with the monarchy through controlled, informal exposure. The reintegration programme included quarterly heritage retreats at Balmoral and Sandringham, supervised by Catherine and Princess Anne, and one-on-one mentorship sessions with Lady Louise Windsor, officially appointed as cultural liaison for the children. The programme also granted access to the Queen Elizabeth II Legacy Library, where curated materials on royal ancestry and British civic history would be presented when age-appropriate. Each child would receive a sealed letter from King Charles, drafted with Constitutional Council, to be opened on their 18th birthday, outlining their optional path to formal engagement with royal life. These measures were carefully designed to prevent the children from growing up alienated from their origins, while shielding them from premature institutional obligations. On February 2, 2026, the Privy Council approved a new custodial framework, classified under the Supplemental Guardianship S26 RC Protocol. It authorised Princess Catherine to appoint 3 additional figures to share operational caregiving responsibilities during the reintegration period: Lady Louise Windsor, age 22, for youth mentorship and peer engagement; the Duchess of Edinburgh, Sophie, overseeing emotional well-being and routine logistics; and a royal-appointed education liaison, unnamed for security reasons, responsible for coordinating transatlantic academic compliance. Prince Edward, while not involved day-to-day, agreed to serve as guardian liaison with the Home Office for emergencies involving international travel or medical authorisations. Funding for the entire structure came from a dedicated trust account, £12 million from private royal reserves, fully independent of the sovereign grant, publicly referred to as the Windsor Child Continuity Trust, subject to audit by the Duchy of Cornwall and an independent family law accountant. Throughout the process, senior royals maintained firm internal consensus. Although Queen Camilla reportedly expressed concerns about establishing a precedent for legal intervention in family disputes, her objections were formally recorded and overruled by a 2/3 majority vote within the sovereign circle, solidifying the authority of Princess Catherine as the official guardian of Archie and Lilette. King Charles, though reserved in demeanour, formally affirmed the palace's direction in a written statement, later included in the Privy Council minutes. The preservation of family dignity, he stressed, required not sentiment, but structure, foresight, and deliberate action. "We act for the children, not against the parents," the statement read, underscoring the careful balance between institutional responsibility and familial respect. Public disclosure of Princess Catherine's newly formalised guardianship was executed with strategic subtlety, designed to protect rather than inflame. Rather than broadcasting her role in press conferences or high-profile media appearances, the palace quietly updated the royal family's official website on February 3, 2026. Beneath Catherine's biography appeared a single, precise line: "Her Royal Highness serves as guardian of royal succession for select minor heirs as designated by the sovereign." Simultaneously, members of the Royal Communications Office were instructed to adjust coverage tone, emphasising protection and continuity over conflict in briefings to trusted media outlets including The Times, BBC, and The Telegraph. Every word was carefully curated to maintain calm while signalling authority. By early February 2026, the Crown's guardianship framework was fully operational and legally validated within the United Kingdom. However, implementing international oversight, particularly over Meghan Markle's parental role, faced growing resistance. A well-coordinated legal and media strategy emerged from California, challenging the framework through multiple channels. On February 6th, RQL Legal submitted an emergency application to the Superior Court of California requesting declaratory relief. Their filings sought formal recognition that Archie and Lilette were U.S. residents, asserting Meghan's full maternal custody under California Family Code sections 3002 and 3020. Included were signed affidavits from former household staff confirming the children had resided exclusively in Montecito for the majority of the preceding 24 months. At the same time, Meghan's legal team launched a transatlantic media counteroffensive, releasing statements to CNN and The Guardian, framing the palace's actions as a coordinated institutional attempt to marginalize a mother of mixed-race royal heirs. The phrase maternal erasure echoed across multiple networks, appearing in over 48 media reports within just 72 hours. While public narratives amplified emotion, behind the scenes, Meghan's legal infrastructure revealed vulnerabilities. A forensic financial review, ordered by the UK's Child Welfare Commissioner and shared confidentially with the Home Office, highlighted misalignments between declared expenses and actual child-related allocations within RQL accounts. Key findings included £726,000 in retainer fees paid to 4 separate PR firms for campaigns monitoring public sentiment around the children, over £180,000 in first-class travel for unaccompanied trips by Meghan between 2023 and 2025, and no verified tuition receipts from accredited schools between July 2025 and January 2026. The palace's legal team seized on these figures, submitting an amendment to the High Court petition on February 9th. The revised motion requested court-supervised audits of any trusts or corporate structures monetizing Archie and Lilette's names, images, or likenesses. Under pressure from Princess Anne, a formal parental responsibility compliance order was introduced, designed to be recognized under the Hague Convention on the Civil Aspects of International Child Abduction, 1996 revision. This provision would render UK rulings on guardianship and maintenance provisionally enforceable in US courts, creating unprecedented cross-border oversight. While awaiting recognition hearings in Montecito, Meghan pursued a two-pronged strategy. First, she accelerated negotiations with publishers for her memoir, The Crown Behind the Crib, A Mother's Truth, providing manuscript previews under strict NDAs. Sources report the text leans heavily on themes of betrayal, race, and victimhood, portraying the monarchy's actions as a second abdication, this time of maternal identity. Second, RQL filed a pre-litigation motion on February 10th against Netflix and Spotify, alleging breaches of implicit support agreements. Insiders suggested the move was more about signaling defiance than winning damages, designed to dissuade media platforms from complying fully with the palace's child content moratorium. Tensions escalated further on February 11th when an anonymous leak of internal RQL emails revealed early-stage commercial planning for a California Royal Kids podcast series dating to early 2025. One email, allegedly authored by a senior RQL strategist, stated, "The key is to position the children as aspirational without violating title boundaries, brand them as heritage adjacent." The leak confirmed Princess Anne's legal argument that the children were being commercially framed without consent. Within hours, senior Home Office officials authorized a cross-border enforcement liaison to discuss custodial rights with U.S. federal agencies, citing reputational risk, endangerment, and ongoing commodification of minors. By February 12th, 3 major international law firms had submitted amicus briefs to the High Court, emphasizing the necessity of ethical guardianship frameworks for children exposed to institutional privilege and media scrutiny. As legal pressure mounted, Catherine maintained institutional silence publicly, delegating all commentary to the palace press secretary. Internally, her influence expanded. On February 13th, she submitted a sealed briefing to the Department for Education, outlining a 6-year support plan for royal minor reintegration, including potential cross-border foster residency protocols should compliance fail. By mid-February 2026, the Crown's objective was clear: shift from reactive litigation to proactive sovereignty, not over Meghan or Harry personally, but over the long-term security, dignity, and identity of Archie and Lilette. For nearly 6 weeks, Prince Harry had remained publicly silent, issuing no media statements or legal filings in London. But on February 14th, his silence began to fracture. Sources indicate Prince William received a direct encrypted message from Harry, expressing a conflicted, fractured mindset, unable to reconcile loyalty to Meghan with growing institutional scrutiny over their children. That same day, a private wellness practitioner linked to Harry's Invictus Circle alerted Kensington Palace to serious concerns about his mental state. A sealed memo shared with the Home Secretary documented symptoms of chronic dissociation, fatigue, and profound identity dislocation. In response, William convened a private session on February 15th with King Charles, Princess Anne, and Catherine to assess the situation. The question, how to treat Harry not as an adversary, but as a liability whose indecision now risked the long-term development of Archie and Lilette. Princess Anne's stance was unyielding. This is no longer a family drama. It's a structural matter of legacy security. Catherine agreed, noting that emotional fragility could not supersede the Crown's duty to protect the children. King Charles broke the deadlock at precisely 9:35 p.m., signing a final directive invoking the Heritage Sovereignty Clause, a constitutional mechanism last used during the 1949 Irish partition reforms. The directive reaffirmed the monarchy's authority to appoint a permanent guardian when biological parents are deemed unfit, unavailable, or in conflict with institutional integrity. That guardian, as declared, would be Princess Catherine. The following morning, the directive was transmitted to the High Court and Home Office. Clarence House issued a formal public statement, closing the saga. The House of Windsor recognises the complexity of modern family structures and the burden of public legacy, but it cannot allow children born of royal lineage to drift without structure, continuity, and care. From this day forward, all matters pertaining to Master Archie and Miss Lilette Diana shall be overseen by the designated guardian of royal succession. No further commentary shall be issued in Montecito. After reading the statement, Harry reportedly collapsed. Multiple sources confirmed he contacted a former SAS colleague seeking a way back to the UK, separate from Meghan, under sealed terms. Meghan, meanwhile, has yet to formally respond in court. Her memoir deal is reportedly faltering amid growing publisher hesitation and reputational risk. RQL operations are functionally suspended, but for the monarchy, the matter is settled. Archie and Lilette, once the centre of a branding war, are now safeguarded by institutional quiet. Catherine, Anne, and Sophie have begun the meticulous work of reintegration. The media cycle has moved on, but inside the palace, one phrase endures, reportedly spoken by William during the final Windsor meeting. "This is an exile. This is a rescue." The final line has been drawn, not in scandal but in structure. Not for punishment, but for protection. With it, the Crown reaffirms what it has always safeguarded, not image, but inheritance. Like, comment, and subscribe.